Hariom Yoga Warriors, Mickey Space here. I'm going to guide you through a little breakdown of the step through. So the step through is essentially the idea that, particularly in Vinyasa, we're often moving dynamically, and we're at certain points in our salutes to the sun or just in our Vinyasa flow, we take a step through, usually from a downward dog position. So the challenge in the step through can be numerous. It's of course an aspect of strength required, an aspect of flexibility. So depending on where we are with both our flexibility and our strength will determine how easily we can step through, or what kind of variations we may need to make in our step through. So, watching me. So if we're in a downward dog position, so in an ideal world, if we were reasonably open in the hips, got a reasonable amount of core strength, then this is the step through we might make. So we might raise, here I'll raise my right leg up to the sky, bring the knee in towards the chest, and then lunge into a lunge so the foot lands between the hands. And whether there I'm coming into a low lunge or maybe a high lunge, the idea that I've landed with my foot in a good position where the knee's right above the ankle. And so that's the alignment we want. So that's also an important issue to consider here. In our lunges, particularly let's say in a high lunge or even in a warrior two and side angle pose, there's always the need to have the knee above the ankle. So above the ankle, it's just an ergonomic thing where when you stack the joints, you're going to be in a safe position essentially for your joints, particularly for the knee. So what I mean is basically if you hadn't stepped through all the way, let's say you attempted the step through, and because maybe the flexibility isn't there in the hips, or maybe the strength not quite there in the core, that in your step through you got to that point, and if you then try to come up from there, as you can see, I'm creating this obtuse angle with my knee, which is not good for the knee. I'm already feeling that as discomfort there. So we want good right angles, or slightly further back from a right angle, where the knee's above the ankle, and then that's the alignment that's going to be safe for the knee. So if we land like that, in a shorter than right angle, then we're creating a lot of pressure on the knee. Okay, so what are our resolutions? If we're not able to, and look, you're watching me, I've had many years of experience with this practice, but even so, I'm still fairly tight in my hips in certain ways. So if you watch carefully, watch my right hand when I step through. I struggle to keep the hand flat to the floor. I actually have to lift it up and come onto the fingertips a little bit, because I am a little tight in the hips. So for me to have the hands flat to the floor and step right through is a challenge. So there's my little compromise, just coming onto the fingertips, which can be good, can be bad, because I suppose on a negative point, coming on the fingertips, when I'm in this position here, there is a bit of pressure there on the fingers. So fingers also have joints in them which can be compromised if that pressure is too strong. Now, I believe personally, I think my fingertips are fairly strong. I do a lot of practice where I guess train the fingers, so I feel okay with that personally. But if you're new to the practice, and particularly let's say if you're carrying a fair bit of weight, then that could be something a little dangerous for the fingers. Okay, so what do we do if we can't step through it? And beside that, even if you didn't need to do that, or if you could do that and then you still couldn't quite get there and you landed here, So what do we do in this point? So one thing people will do, they might come up and they might realise, oh, I need to shuffle and get it a little further forward until I'm in the right position. So of course, knowing first of all that you need to be with that alignment, knee above the ankle. So bringing yourself to there, even after, let's say, a half step through with a little shuffle, an extra few steps is okay. Although it causes a little bit of, let's say, it doesn't flow nicely. And particularly with vinyasa, the idea is to create a nice smooth flow between our postures, between our sequences. So if we are kind of stumbling our way to our pose, you can stumble and maybe you can be creative, because there's no real right or wrong here. It's up to finding what works for you. So maybe you can create a stumbling way for you to get there if that's comfortable for you, but probably even better is to give yourself some other kind of assistance, and that's where you bring the knees down. So particularly if we're quite tight in the hips, it doesn't necessarily mean we're not strong enough, we haven't got a good practice. Some friends who've been practicing for years still work their step through in this way. So what do I mean by that? So basically, revising again, if I'm stepping through in one foul swoop, I do it like that, and I come up and I'm in a nice position there. So if that was going to be difficult for us, so rather than raising the right leg up, bring the opposite knee down, and then from there you've got leverage to either swing the leg around, do it from this side, so swing the leg around, or just step that leg through. That hand can come off, you're not worried too much, there's not too much pressure there on the fingers, even if you just keep one hand there, because you've got your back knee supporting the weight as well. And then from there you're in position, whether it's a low or a high lunge. So let me just show you that a little smoother, how it might look. So from your downward dog, we'll go the other side now, instead of raising the left leg up, so the teacher might be instructing, raise your left leg up, that's my cue to bring my right knee down, step the left leg through, and there I am in my high lunge. So I managed to create that step through nice and smoothly, and I guess that's key, is to find a smooth transition between those postures. So hope that helps. Practice a little bit of both, just really takes a bit of time to practice your stepping through. Find a way that feels smooth for you. So whether that is taking a few little baby steps, lifting that other hand up to create a bit more space, or bringing the knees down, or maybe just the opposite knee down, so you can either swing the leg through. And look, one thing about swinging, because some teachers might say, oh, it's not good to swing the leg around, or we should always step straight through, but it really depends on the shape of your hips and where your hip joint's at, as to how smoothly we can actually step through, and what's the position that we need to create with the hips. So again, there's no real right or wrong. There is for each and every one of us individually, and that'll depend on how the hips are. So for some people, from the knees, this kind of swinging around might be better, and then for others, maybe just stepping straight through might be better. So again, we just need to experiment, have a little play, just in your own time, maybe now if you can, just have a little play of trying those different options of stepping through with the leg up, and try to go through maybe with some little baby steps. Another one, of course, is using the hand. So if we don't quite get through, we might just use the hand there to bring it through and then up. But just the idea is to find a way for it to be a smooth transition. That's key. Smooth transition, so that it becomes a nice flow. And then look, even if we are coming onto the knees, making any little adjustments and not going through in one fell swoop, we may find that, look, after some years of practice, the hips open a little more, we gain a bit more strength, and then maybe we can revise it after some time. Not necessarily years, can be just even months or weeks, depending on how often we practice. But we may find the body actually changes, and that's part of the benefits of this yoga practice, is our bodies do change. They do transform. So just revise every now and then. Revise your step through. How is your body now? Can we try a different way? But always with the intention, particularly when we're working with our vinyasa practice, to make it as smooth as possible. So I hope that was useful to you. Namaste.